Welcome back to the vlog, everybody. Today I want to tell you guys about a story that has shaped my life in significant ways and how I see this story different now than I did when I first heard it as a child. And the story maybe that shaped me more than anything, I'm sure you've heard it, is this Jim Elliot who went down to Ecuador. Mm-hmm. And this story shaped me because it was the story of incredible sacrifice. You know, him and his friends died. But then it also has this sort of bright ending. The people that killed them ended up being reached, and there was this restoration, and they led these people to the Lord that killed their husbands. And what you see in the 20 minutes it takes to hear the story is God worked. God used this sacrifice. God used this family. He took what was incredible sacrifice on the behalf of the families that lost their husbands, and they didn't give up. They used it for good. Just to note, for those of you who are following this journey of us vlogging together, it's a challenge for us to do anything consistently, and especially to do it together in unity. We prayed last night about this vlog, and we got something close to unity on what the topic was today. I don't know if she's going to be on the vlog as much today. The unity in doing the vlog together actually is about what the vlog's about, and that we're aiming to do it, hear the Lord about what the vlog's about together, more so than her being on camera or talking a ton, though that also is the goal. It's a wrestle. We're wrestling through that.
Have you read all the Elizabeth Elliot books?
I haven't.
I read Gates of Splendor, Passion and Purity is more about marriage, but her whole story is the story of forgiveness, of going back into the jungles and bringing the gospel to the natives. She meets the man who killed her husband. Well, there was a point where they had to make a choice. Do we go back or do we go home?
And did our husband's death, did we hear God? Were we supposed to do this? Is this a waste of our time?
I know.
I've been reflecting on this story, the Jim Elliot story, and I have recently reflected differently on other missions cries or calls that I've heard in a way that's maybe they weren't as positive. But the Jim Elliot story actually is a really positive story that I actually think had a positive influence on me, and I just don't think I realized really its story actually, because it's when you get into missions you realize, doing mission work doesn't immediately turn into reaching unreached people groups.
Well, you need to see that it is a resolved story that spans decades.
Well, what it helped me was when I had the realization that the reason I wasn't experiencing Jim Elliot missions wasn't because I wasn't doing what Jim Elliot did. It was because I am still in the middle of my story. That helped me a lot. To realize, I might actually be doing the right things or doing what he did. The difference is that I'm not 20 years down the road. I'm not 30 years down the road where the story can be seen. And that isn't that so much of what story or even trusting God is about, is timing. Doing this thing right now seems stupid. In 20 years, it could be brilliant.
Corrie ten Boom, talk about horrible. And we get to hear her story resolved, where the guard that beat her sister, she comes to Christ later. You heard that story, right?
Yeah.
She was forgiving, but she still was in anguish and pain. She doesn't know what's ahead.
And that's the power of story, is that God was writing Jim Elliot and Elizabeth Elliot's story. See, this is not bad vlogging. You just type in the prompt in and you talk. Conversation points. Update on your book. What are you currently working on?
Backstory.
On the heart.
Well, we realized, I don't know if I should say this.
You can say it. I don't have to put it in.
We realized that the other story that I had started on 2 years ago is actually connected to the story. This story could be the backstory or prequel, but there's even a backstory to this backstory that I also had started to write on that I just discovered. I forgot I had written, and it totally ties into this story, so they're all connected.
story that shaped me is the story of Jim Elliot. But what I was reflecting on was that story really is what started my interest in missions. I have potentially a dumb thing that I want you to do with me.
Okay. I'm in for a potentially dumb thing.
Got that there.
What is something that's super important to you, and when did it become important?
John? Does anybody like the
So,
custard?
writing, when I decided this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is write stories, was when I read Ted Decker's.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, when I got to the end of the third book, I was like, oh my God, Jesus is real. I need to go read my Bible. And I want to write
I was gonna say 11 and 9 or something like that when he read the Lord of the Rings to us. I remember doing all the
Is this the book that
voices.
impacted you?
It was very impactful, yeah.